We're live.
Thank you, Owen. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this meeting of the Town Office Feasibility Committee. It is February 21st, 6:30 p.m. I'm just going to read off our introduction and then we'll get the meeting started. This open meeting of the Town Office Feasibility Study Committee is being conducted remotely pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency signed into law on March 29th, 2023. All members of the Town Feasibility Study Committee are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The Act allows the Town Office Feasibility Study Committee to meet entirely remotely as long as reasonable access to the public is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless the chair notes otherwise. Members of the public who wish to view the live stream may do so by going to Northborough Remote Meetings on YouTube via the link listed in the agenda. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will, as always, feature public comment. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative so we can make sure we can hear you. Linda Brenkel. Linda, you're on mute.
Here.
Aaron Hutchins.
I'm here.
Kristen Wickstead.
Here.
Judy Boyle.
Here.
Dario.
Here.
Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Sean Thompson.
Present.
Scott Charpentier.
Present.
Diane Wackel.
Present.
Tim McErney.
Here.
Okay. When we get to the public comment section, I'll read off the instructions for that. So I guess with that, we'll get started here. First on the agenda is the acceptance of the January 24th minutes. Did anyone have any amendments to the minutes? No? Do I have a motion to accept the January 24th minutes?
I motion to accept the January 24th meeting minutes.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Roll call vote. I'll go by who's on my screen here. So Linda.
Accept. Aye.
Aaron.
I abstain.
Kristen.
Aye.
Judy.
Aye.
And I'm an aye. So that takes care of that. And we'll move on to the next item, which is the presentation from ICON. So welcome members from ICON. I see Ned and Anna on there, and I see two Annas.
Mark, you seem to be going by Anna.
I gotta change my name. There we go.
Is there going to be somebody presenting?
Yes, Anna.
Yes,
Anna
I'm
needs-
sharing my screen right now.
You're going to share your.
Yeah, while she's
There
doing
we
it,
go.
we have a very dense agenda for you this evening. So please be patient as we get through it. There are several action items that we will get to at the end of the presentation where we're seeking your input and assistance in moving them forward. So I think with that, I will hit start, Anna, and let's go to the first slide. So the three items, the update to the schedule, which Mark will give, are program recommendations and adjacencies, which is a summary from our last meeting. And then the bulk of the presentation is our analysis of the 4 sites and parcels and a summary of how those align with the 2020 master plan for the town. Mark.
There we go. happy to be here. We are currently in week 19 or the 19th of February. So we are working through the programming is done. The conceptual site planning we have worked through. We are a little bit, we're expecting our site disposition estimates early next week, pre public meeting. You'll see that our stacking and blocking and stacking diagrams are showing our early conceptual design, and following the next this meeting and the public meeting will be engaging our engineers with to receive narratives and understandings on the geotech, environmental, and MEP fronts. And then, as you'll see, we are moving toward a package to the cost estimator in the last week of March. So this is where we are. Again, we're right in the middle and in the heavy chunk of things right now. And one of the things we'll be asking for you at the conclusion of today's meeting is a preferred option for us to move forward with. We are also anticipating getting public feedback on the 28th and or 27th, sorry, and including that into the options. Next. We have completed our programming, and we will go through where we landed on that. These are just some of the terms that we use, and you'll see that as we move forward here. So with regards to our final program, we have met with all the departments. We have reviewed the program with both Scott, Tim, and Diane, and with all the departments, and everybody has signed off. We are landing at about 26,300 square foot of need for a new or renovated town hall. And Anna, can you go to the next slide, please? Oh, sorry. I thought go for it, Anna. You're on mute, Anna.
Yep. So after collecting the information on during the stakeholder interviews, some things that we like to also gather are those necessary adjacencies. And so what you see here is this adjacency diagram that shows us which departments have a reciprocal relationship, meaning they need adjacency to one another or they've asked for it, or if it's a one-way adjacency where, for example, the clerk here asked to be adjacent to the finance department. And then looking at the bigger picture, we get to understand who needs to be placed next to who, and you'll see this in action in the next massing diagrams. And then
it's sorry, really quick. It's important to note that the circles that you see are to a scale. So the amount of square footage needed by department is what's shown in these circles. Go ahead, Anna.
I think the other thing to add in, Mark, is the orange circles are those who requested public service desks, and there was a high number of departments that looked for that.
Yeah, and one more thing is we're not only looking at adjacencies between departments, we're also looking at adjacencies to those conference rooms and public meeting rooms. And then one further, we took it one further step and we looked at how these could be grouped in terms of what groups could be on certain levels or on a floor. So what you see here is we've gathered that town administrator, the assessor, finance, and the clerk would all be placed on one level together. Whereas what you hear us talking about, the big three, building, planning, and health, could be placed on another level. And this is just for us to get an idea of how to get started on those massing studies.
And so our
Mark, can
final
I ask a question through the chair? Can I ask a question?
Yep.
Yeah, and actually, is that the format?
Yep.
Can we stop and ask questions as we go?
We're fine with it on our
All
end.
right. All right. So through the chair, I'll just ask Mark or Anna to the service desk concept conceptually, are basically breaks in the walls to service to keep the footprint of needed space down. So can you just elaborate on the philosophy behind the service counters and the need for them to service the public?
Yeah, so this is as you did state, Tim, we look at it as having a service window within a wall or within a circulation area. There are a couple of options, or one option in it that you'll see moving forward, that consolidate the service desks into one area. And so that is something that we have seen in other town halls. And so that's kind of two ways to do this, but a lot of departments do deal with the public and want to have that ability to do so without having to go into a space, that it can be from a public space or a public corridor. So that's, Tim, is that answering your thoughts and questions there?
Yeah, I guess I'm just trying, as an example of what we're trying to get the best bang for the buck, right? So if we can have smaller spaces for staff because we service the public in a corridor, I think there's a speed of service.
Yes.
You don't have to actually come into a physical space, but it actually makes our square foot use for our staff smaller because we don't have that service counter on the inside of that wall.
Agreed.
So just
Yes.
by way of example, just those are small, they're not even value engineer, right? Because we're not there yet. We're trying to be thoughtful in keeping the footprint as small as possible. So by way of example, I just wanted to share that with whomever's on and listening.
Yeah, and I think, Tim, just to reinforce that, and we've said this before, your departments, your staff were all very modest in their requests. There's a very strong alignment, we believe, between real needs and the square footages that are shown here.
So the final program recommendations are, the recreation department, many staff have stated there are noise challenges with their co-location with the existing town hall offices, and the space and storage needs for them are they are way outgrowing or have outgrown their space. If you look at the diagram, the adjacency diagram, you'll see that nobody requested to be next to the recreation department, and the recreation department requested to be next to no one. So we strongly recommend relocating them. 11 Pierce is something you'll see as we go forward. DPW department would really like to be out of town hall and in the highway building and serve as part of that, serve from that location. All the departments are short of meeting space. There was a lot of discussion about how the break room is not really a break room. and that it's challenging to have discrete meetings. Meetings in general are challenging. And the last thing that we talked about is which we talked about last time that we met with you all, was giving the building and a civic presence within the town, and also giving it the civic spaces the appropriate gravitas. And one of the building uh, committee members raised the example of, I believe it was either the fire chief or the police chief retiring, and there was no appropriate space for that. And so providing that type of space was something that we included in our final program.
So just one quick question, and I don't mean any disrespect here, but the relocating the DPW to the highway building, does that mean that in 5 years we're going to be looking to renovate that building?
The
Go ahead, Scott.
Go ahead, Scott.
sorry, in order to respond. So the Public Works garage actually has a notch out in one of the corners. If you go around the back of the garage where the leaf piles are, there's a cubby, so to speak. The garage is in an L shape, so it's a relatively easy close off to have office space there. And the tight tank that was approved at last year's town meeting, the design for that accommodates that closure component in the event DPW admin was to be relocated.
Okay. So you're comfortable that your department is going to be able to stay there for a while as is, or
There would be a
I mean-
modest reconfiguration of the space and expansion. One of the key components of what's been presented is the sort of centralized billing service desk, where right now somebody comes in at town hall, they go, to the clerk to do their dog license, they go to the collector to pay their taxes, they come downstairs, they pay the water. It's not very service oriented. So having that centralized will allow the operations piece of Public Works to be closer to actually where the operations occur.
okay. And then my other question was, I know it came up before from the town clerk about the potential issue with voting, and the asks from the schools that we not use the schools anymore. Was that taken into consideration when I noticed in the previous slide you had a community space.
We are currently in working with Scott and Tim, the schools or the clerk came back with the space that they use for voting is about 2,400 square feet. And we are not proposing any space of that size. And there was a discussion, I believe, with Tim and or Scott about the ability to maintain in the schools the ability to vote. So that's not something we have brought to the new building program.
One of the biggest challenges, Bill, with the voting component, I'm sorry, Tim, if you were going to respond, but one of the bigger challenges with the voting component is vehicle circulation, as well as parking. To have accommodations for a growth of parking needs when it comes to presidential election from 5 p.m. until polls close. It's really challenging to accommodate in any of the downtown locations, and town hall is actually even worse because you don't have a lot of satellite parking there. So the choice was to kind of go back to the operations table and discuss ways to accommodate it in some of our existing spaces that are a little bit larger, like the schools.
Okay. Okay, that's all my questions. Thank you.
So we wanted to show the 4 sites in relation to the 2020 master plan town limits, and then also showing a half-mile walk and how that works from we consider the center of town to basically be 4 West Main. And so looking at how all these properties that we are studying fit into that, or fit within that walking area. And this shows the existing 4 West Main and Pierce Street with the 2 municipal lots and the number of spaces that each of those contain. There is also south of Fatouche, there is, I think, a 37 lot, a 37 space municipal lot there as well. And then we highlighted the parking areas for the downtown church and the school to give you all a sense of how much space 100 spaces takes and how much space 64 spaces take. To get right now, it's looking like the zoning will require around 65 spaces for the for a new town hall. So, Anna, next slide, please. Ned?
This is a first draft of one of our questions that we'll have at the end. And that is an evaluation of, we actually have 5 schemes that we're going to talk through this evening. We think they range from the lowest cost, which is a straight interior renovation of 4 West Main, to the highest cost, which would be White Cliffs, largely because of the historic component of the building, and the other schemes fall in between. And what we want your assistance on, your input on, after you've seen the presentation this evening, is what you see as the critical evaluation criteria. We've broken it into the program criteria, site criteria, sustainable design criteria, and conformance with the town's 2020 master plan. The list can be much longer than this, and the checks we've put in are, in our judgment, what is conforming and what's not. But we've always found this kind of comparative matrix to be a valuable tool when presenting decisions in a public forum. So we'll come back to this at the end and be seeking your thoughts on additional evaluation criteria.
So we're going to talk first about and actually our site studies and our test fit diagrams follow the list that you just saw. So we're calling anything having to do with 4 West Main the restoring of the center. There are 2 schemes based on this, and one is to take the existing and fit everything into the existing building, and then the other is to add an addition to the east. One of the things I just want to talk about this building in particular, because it's quite quirky. As you all know, it was originally 4 stories, and when it was rebuilt, it went to 5. And one of the challenges that created is that there are some awkward floor-to-floor heights within this building. So the first floor is perfectly normal at 16 feet floor to floor, but then you go up to the second floor and it's only a 10-foot rise, which is something that you see typically for wood residential construction. And one of the things that does is it puts the sill height for the windows at the second floor very high near your chest, and it makes for a very small window opening that's up. And then similarly, when you get up to the third floor, which has a much higher floor to floor, the sill of the window is at the floor level, and the head of the window is at your head height. And then last, the top floor is really more of an attic. It has 3 pairs in front and back of skylights. However, there's no windows at any level other than the skylights. So it is there's no way to see out when you are in that space unless you're looking within the skylights. So these are quirky features of this building that our real estate professional or real estate estimator has stated make this building not only hard for reuse, but bring the overall value down because it's so hard to configure or reconfigure because of those challenges. And so I just wanted to bring that up before we go through this. And
But
so,
nevertheless, we're presenting a scheme.
yeah,
The only other thing I'd add is the mechanical well and the fifth floor of the building also creates a very low ceiling area in the center of the plan.
right. So this is from above, and you'll note that in these images, it looks as though we are there's a chunk of the building that is being lopped off. The reality is that the orthographic photos from satellites are slightly skewed, and so for us to put the building in the correct footprint, there's actually a part of the building that sticks out, and you'll see that in a lot of these. I just want everybody to be aware. So in this, you enter from the south into a vestibule. We have to the right, we have the select boardroom and the large meeting room across the way. There is a Northborough CATV control room to the south and storage, and then storage in the large meeting room. We have relocated the elevator to the north side of the building, and this is because where it is currently laid out, it eats up a lot more circulation, and it's also difficult for wayfinding because you end up facing the exterior wall to the east, and you don't know where you're supposed to go when you get off of the elevator. We're also in this showing a new grand staircase at the front so that you can go up to the second level, which has the consolidated service desk. So this has all the service desks from the departments that we showed in the adjacency diagram, along with the town clerk, the food pantry and food pantry office, and a conference room. And it's important to note that we are showing this. This will have most likely an 8-foot ceiling to an 8'6" ceiling. So it will feel very tight.
Mark, I think it would help to Tim's earlier questions and comments to explain the concept of consolidating the desks as opposed to a service window off a department.
Right.
And why we're proposing it.
So there's a couple reasons why. In order to provide each department with their service desk within their suite of space, you end up needing to use the elevator quite a bit because we're using all of the spaces throughout the building. So if you need to go to the finance department, you're going to need to go to the 4th or 5th floor in this. And so the elevator is going to be in constant use, and it will that was one of the reasons why we proposed the grouped service desk area. The other is that, as Tim stated, it's trying to provide all the services at one stop, at one location. So each area that you see would have an admin within it. And that admin would be responsible for working not only the desk, but also with their department. And so you see here that this will require some up-down travel by staff. but this is how we came to this solution. The other thing that it does is it creates a larger space need for each department, and therefore you end up being able to fit fewer departments on the floors above. And last, I will say the town clerk requested in our meetings to be front and center, as much front and center as they can be, for wayfinding, and just generally they are the most used, and they would have one of those service desks that you see.
So the bulk of the public coming and going from the building would be on floors 1 and 2 only.
Right. So as you move up one level, we have the
Can I just add one thing, because I want
Yep.
the community and all my staff that I've invited to watch this. It's important. You know, we had 4 places to look at. So this concept of grouping, like much like the registry of motor vehicles, you go into a big pool area and you can get a license, you can get registration, you can get a title. That's kind of the model. My staff, other than the 3 members on this call, have not heard or discussed that. But it's a chicken or the egg type scenario. Do I talk to the committee first, or do I talk to staff and get feedback? So I just warn you that all the kinks of all this hasn't worked out, but I just wanted to be clear that we haven't worked through this scenario with pooling staff on one level internally. So I just want to make that clear. I think it can work. I think other places have it work. It's just I have not fully vetted the concept out to all staffing departments.
Thanks, Tim. It's a very fair point. I do want to emphasize that we're starting off with what we consider to be the lowest cost option to the town, and it definitely requires some creative thinking as to how to occupy the building, and that's what that's reflecting.
So as you go up in this option, there is the town administrator, the assessor, the cable TV, and they share a conference room within that these 3 suites. We've also been asked to bring the veterans agent over into a new town hall, and that is we were able to fit that in here. It's important to note that within this scheme, that we are not hitting our program sizes for many of the over half of the departments. We're about 15% short. So it will take some finagling to fit everything, but there is ample storage in the basement that could be used to sort of alleviate or help or try to alleviate the storage needs within each suite. This is, again, what we've referred to as the big 3. They all need conference room, and this would put their conference room front and center. And then as you go up to the next level, we have, so it's important to note that as this building goes up, the floor plate actually gets smaller. So when you get to this level, which I believe is the 4th and 5th floors, or the 5th floor, it goes from about 5,800 square feet to about 4,600 square feet. So these are the last 3 departments up here. And it is they again have reduced footprints from what we would recommend their program be. And so this is the 4 West Main test fit.
Do you think that we would want to explore ways to get them actual windows as opposed to windows?
Yeah. So what's the actual square footage of that? I know you said that, I think it was 23 was the, what we were shooting for, right?
We're shooting for 26,300 square feet. This building has 3 floors of 58 or 57, 5,800 square feet. So that's 17,000, and then 2 that are around let's say 4,600 square feet. So is that right? Do I have my math right? Give me
Yeah, I
one
think
second
the,
here.
the key to remember here is we're having to repeat the elevator, toilet room, and stairs
Yeah.
on every floor. So even though we're getting close to the target square footage, the net to gross ratio is much worse in this building. So if we looked at the net square footage, which is what Mark is talking about, it would fall short, even though the gross is close.
Can you, Ned, can you expand, or Mark, can you expand a little bit on the net to gross analysis and those percentages that you use, please?
Sure.
Yeah. So the net is the between the walls. That is the square footage that exists, and the gross is when you add shafts and circulation and walls and structure and toilet rooms that we're not carrying. The elevator, for instance, the egress stairs, all of that stuff is in the net to gross multiplier. We're carrying a 1.35 net to gross multiplier for which is pretty common for this type of building. As Ned pointed out, there are challenges to the existing. For instance, you see those columns running down the middle. Part of the reason we had to pull back is because we don't have the ADA clearances on either side of those columns to fit doors and other things into. It's just a tight circulation. It's like 4'6" or so. So we're giving enough space there for the circulation that is required. So
I think this is a note for next week. We should add the net to gross for each of these schemes.
yeah.
Just to be clear, that the amount of this building that's dedicated to non-assignable usable space is greater than in the other schemes.
Mhm.
Essentially, the scenario is the more floors, the less usable space, the more circulation, toilet room, common space needed.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Could I also ask, so Ned, you said this is the lowest cost option, but you also said that you would potentially explore ways to provide windows in this building. And so does that, providing the windows idea, still bring it in as a lowest cost option?
I suspect it probably would. Whatever solution we came up with has to work with the look of the building. And it's a priority issue. And I think we talked about this when we interviewed the idea of a top-down analysis and a bottom-up budget analysis. This is the one that we would assume would if you were to say we need a project that cost X million dollars, this is the scheme that would probably come closest to the lowest project cost. Does that make sense, Linda?
Yeah, but even if you do modifications for windows.
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Can I
this,
ask a question? Sorry.
yeah.
Just quick. So I just wanted to make sure I heard Scott right. When you were talking about this option doesn't really have a room big enough for voting, right? Did I hear that right?
We did not include a room for voting after the clerk told us that the rooms that he uses are 2,400 square feet, and we do not have any room that is that large in this program. Anna, if you could go back to actually the first floor of the previous option.
Mark, not to throw a wrench in the works, but isn't it possible that a couple of abutting spaces though could be combined to meet that need?
Yes, Ned,
Yeah.
that was exactly where I was going. You took the words right out of my mouth. So in this, as you can see in this, we've got these accordion doors because this, the select board room that we're showing is about 200 square feet too small. So we were proposing that you could put in a movable partition, and you could also put in a movable partition across the way. And in doing so, in this scheme, you could have enough space to to have voting at town hall.
Okay, okay.
This is Dario, real quick. I, I thought none of these schemes were planning to have voting, and one of the big reasons was parking, and this doesn't solve that either.
Right.
But yeah, I don't want to, I think that one-time use should not be the dog in this big scenario, and it's such an expensive undertaking for one time every 2 years to try to accommodate it here. And I thought you guys had written it off, but on all scenarios, not just this one.
We have. I'm just
Okay.
saying that we could do it in this scenario by opening up both of these meeting rooms and having the amount of square footage that the clerk
And what
currently
about the
uses.
parking?
Sorry, what was that?
The parking was one of the primary
Right.
reasons.
Yeah, we can't. This will not solve the parking issue.
That's my problem. That's the point. So
Right.
we're half pregnant here.
Right.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, I had one other question, on one of the top floors, one of the smaller floors. You have something called MIS/GIS, and I just didn't know what that stands for, sorry.
No, that's
It's
the
a
IT and GIS department for the town.
Okay, and as far as like where everything is this is just hypothetical, right? Like if we did go with this building, things wouldn't necessarily have to be here. Where you have
This is a test fit that shows that the program with some caveats will fit in here. However, and these are the adjacencies that were requested. And so yes, things could move around, and it's important to note that a lot of these square footages are short 10 to 15% from what we would recommend.
Right.
So
and there's a lot, they would have to keep stuff in the basement, and it looks like a lot of up and down stairs, right?
yes.
Yeah. Okay, all right, that's enough for me. I don't want to take too much time. I know it's just like an idea. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a very fair point to consider these all ideas. Nothing is even close to fixed. This is simply looking at the site and looking at the building footprints that we've been given and determining what we think is a good idea and a good potential solution for these. So for West Main, we think that putting an addition to the east is a potentially good option. We really love this site. It is the center of town. There is no question about it. And the one thing that we determined in sort of creating these groupings is that there are a few things that really want to be on the first floor: the public meeting spaces, the service desks, and then the clerk and the food pantry. Really, because of the comings and goings of and the ability of loading, those are really things that drove sort of this option. We do realize that this option interferes with Blake Street, and there's the potential to either route to the east or potentially to close it off and have access from the north. So Anna, do you want to go to the next slide? So this option still carries the grouped service desks. The three smaller desks that you see are three of the departments required having a public-facing computer for research. And so that's something that we could probably fit one or two in the first option, but we wouldn't be able to fit all three. That's what's shown here that's different. Again, we have the food pantry office here, the clerk, the meeting rooms, and the control room for CATV and storage for furniture sets for the town for the two rooms.
This building's proposed with a double entrance.
Right.
One from where the bulk of the parking is, and then another on the public face of the building.
And with this option, we were able to put sort of the smaller support spaces, the smaller or less publicly visited spaces in the second floor because it's so height constrained. The staff support spaces, and family and youth services, and then the IT department would be on the second floor, and we wouldn't carry the second floor over. We would just let that height be to make the select board room and the large meeting rooms more appropriately vertical for the volume that they're for the area that they're covering. And then the third floor is where we bring the big three in, along with the town administrator and cable TV. And those could potentially share a small conference room in the north in the addition. And then in this option, finance and the assessor round out the fourth floor. This does have two conference rooms. So if in fitting the previous floor without having a conference room, they go one floor up and they have access to a conference room. This has a larger lobby area simply because we are meeting the program sizes for all these. And this does provide a little bit of extra space. And then in this one, we leave the attic space or the top floor for storage and mechanical. And we stop the addition. The addition's only 3 floors, and we let the existing building remains 5.
Can I ask about parking concerns about 4 West Main in general? Is there adequacy of parking for either options 1 or 2?
So the municipal lots total 37, 22, and 24. So they total 83 spots. If it was plus, we'd add 9, so there'd be 91 municipal spaces within walking distance of 4 West Main. If it was just a straight fit out within the existing envelope, then we would have the additional 9 up to 91. But there are 83 spaces within probably within less than a quarter mile, maybe an eighth of a mile.
And is it where it says 37, does the town own that property?
That is my understanding that is municipal lot.
Yeah, the town owns that parcel, almost up to the front of Fatouche Restaurant.
Okay.
The other 2
then,
lots are, one's across the street from the fire station, 11 Pierce, and the other one is over by the 3 War Memorial.
Okay. Yeah, another question I had was, if you go 2 floors, but 26 feet, I guess, for floors 1 and 2 in that select board space and the conference room space and option 2, How do you handle the acoustics? Does that affect acoustics if you open it up that high?
I mean, there'll be treatments to manage the acoustics. I don't know that we'd go the full 26 feet, but we're going to need to get mechanical equipment in there, etc. So typically, we typically provide 5 feet for that sandwich of structure and equipment, and so you're down at 18 feet at that point.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Mark, I would just note we're about 50 minutes in. Yeah.
Okay, Anna, go for 11 Pierce. Or sorry, 63 Main.
Yes, so 63 Main is the next one on our cost bar. So some things to point out about the site and what the concept would be. We're calling this Reimagining Town Hall, since we are utilizing the existing footprint of the building, and then also thinking about that this is still within a walking distance to that center of town. So with this, we would maintain that access road down to the existing parking, and the parking would remain at the 66 spots. And the main entrance would remain on the west side, which right now it is located about here, but we've moved it further north to accommodate the circulation. And then what you see here in the white is a potential addition to that existing structure of about 2,100 square feet. And that would house, again, those public spaces, being the select boardroom and a community lobby. So moving on to the site, we flipped it to accommodate the screen. So off the entrance would be on your west side off of the parking. And so as you enter, you're met with this corridor of circulation, that to the right, you would have stairs leading you up to the second floor. And then to your left, we've located the food pantry and the family and youth services. So this scheme accommodates the service desk or the service window within each department. And we have a large corridor to accommodate both circulation and people standing in for services. Adjacent to family and youth services, you have the town clerk, the assessor, and finance. And then as you continue down this hall, you have the rest of your circulation with the elevator, and the existing stairs would remain. So these are the historic stairs that face onto the street.
Note at this level, that end of the building is below grade.
And then the rest of the spaces would be used for mechanical space. And so then if you turn to your right and you continue up the stairs, on that second level, this would be open to below, to that corridor. And then you're met with the community lobby space. So this would be housed in that addition that we just mentioned. And then your select boardroom, both facing or having that civic presence onto the street. And then as you continue down the hall, you have a meeting lobby that accommodates for gathering outside of the large meeting room and the select boardroom. You have another conference room on this level for the big three: health, building, and planning. And then to your left on the hall, you have the veterans agent. And then taking those existing stairs up to the third level, we've located CATV on this level, on which the control rooms would live within this department, and we'll look down to the select boardroom. So these two spaces, the community lobby and the select boardroom, would be double-heighted spaces. And then as you continue down the hall, you have the rest of your department spaces, IT, town admin. And then we have enough space to accommodate the long-term storage needs of the departments. And then what you see here in red are the staff support spaces, which include mailroom, and your lunch and break room, among others. Do we have any questions on this one? If not, we'll
Yeah, if I can just expand on it a little bit, the long-term storage space you see here in 4 West Main Street and in the forthcoming scenarios, municipalities have a requirement to retain documents for statutory durations, and those documents need to be available for production in accordance with public record requests. So the need for these on-site storage components is critical, and it's part of the law. So while it looks like a big gray rectangle, it's actually required and will be accessed to accommodate public records requests.
Anna,
Thank you,
just for
Scott.
scale, can you just tell us what's the square footage of that particular room, just so we know what we're talking about?
For the long-term storage,
Yeah.
so that should be about 2,000 square feet. In this scheme, we do have a little bit more space. So I believe in this one we have about 2,500 of long-term storage here.
So I'd say the big idea on this one is to give the building 2 public faces, the face to Main Street, which is the select board, and the community lobby, making a very strong corner, and then opening up particularly the ground floor of the west side, so that where people are parking, they're getting an equivalent kind of civic entrance that also helps with wayfinding when you enter the building, because you're able to see all of the services in front of you on the 2 floors that are connected vertically.
What aspects make this design more expensive than the prior one?
It's a more extensive interior renovation than the previous scheme.
And this also has an addition that I think we're thinking might be a little with the civic presence, it may have higher level materials, etc. But I agree with Ned. Primarily, this is a more invasive approach.
We're also building an additional floor in the gymnasium.
Right.
That's part of it. They may be very close to one another. You know, we haven't gone through deep financial analysis. This is just our experiences telling us the 4 West with an addition and the reimagining of 63 Main one is slightly more expensive than the other.
There is a piece of continuity of government with providing the services through the duration of construction at 63 Main Street that needs to be considered as part of the estimating.
That's what I was gonna ask. Yeah, where does everybody go while they're tearing up the building and making it nice? I guess that's part of the cost, is what you're saying, right?
It is, and you'll see it on our checklist that you would have to have probably trailers.
Trailers?
The mobile office.
Like in the parking lot?
That's one option that's been done often.
Well, that sounds like a lot of fun. Okay.
When we did Oak Bluffs, they actually, their prior facility was in such poor shape, they preferred the mobile offices.
I don't think we're quite there, but
Yeah.
it sounds very invasive for the staff too. So
We have 300 students in trailers now at Dana Hall. All the classrooms are in trailers. It's pretty typical for a quick renovation to have those trailers.
So how quick would this renovation possibly be? If you had to give a range, Ned or Mark?
I would say 15 to 18 months.
That's not quick. Okay. Not in my mind. All right, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Let's keep going on.
Okay, so moving along, this is our 11 Pierce Street site, so where the fire station is located. So we're calling this one Renewing Downtown. With this particular scheme, we're looking at the possibility of two options. This first option, which is what you see here, is complete new construction, so demolition of the fire station, and having about 26,000 square feet of all new construction. With this site, we do have limited parking of about 20 parking spaces that could be located along the edge of the parcel. And then the rest of the parking requirements would be met with the adjacent municipal lots that we've already discussed. And so moving along, again, we've rotated this to fit the screen. And so off of that parcel, the entrance would be located to the south, we call it the south, southwest, of where off of that parking area that I previously showed. And so as you enter, the lobby welcomes you, and then you have a grand staircase to your left. To your right, you have that grouping of the public meeting rooms. And then if you continue down this hall, again, this scheme, we're looking at the service area, or that service window being located within the department. One thing to point out is that with new construction, we can also look at consolidating the service desks into the lobby area to decrease the square footage per department. And so again, as you continue down this hall, you have your series of departments, with town clerk being the center, being at the center adjacent to the lobby. Finance and assessor, you have a conference room on this level, and you have long-term storage, or a portion of that needed long-term storage on this level. Food pantry, family and youth services, again, located on the ground level, which would be ideal for them to have access to the exterior, as well for discrete purposes. Aaron, do you have a question?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Let me just jump in here real quick. I had communicated to the committee that I developed a conflict, so I need to step out. So I need to know if somebody's going to be able to pick up the secretarial minutes for the remainder of the meeting, number one. Number two, I'm interested in what the I guess just understanding for our public meeting a week from now. I guess what I heard is we're looking for the committee to tell us a property to focus on, and then we'll prepare a more detailed presentation for the public. Is that generally the concept?
No, I'm sorry if that was, I don't think I was clear. I think that we would like to get your input on a preferred option and the public's input on a preferred option. And once we have that, we would then take that, and that is the one that we will develop for schematic design and pricing.
Okay, so by virtue of the fact that I regrettably have to leave early this evening, I'm obviously anxious about the fact that I'm not going to be able to cast a vote. So I'm wondering if through the chair we can just postpone the committee's vote to the same night that the public is going to weigh in.
Yeah, I think that would be fair. We do want everyone here to participate, so.
And I think Ashley would want that as well. She's on vacation. Yep. She'll watch the video. I'll watch the rest of the video. I did have one last question relative to 63 Main. If you look at the original diagram that you put up for 63 Main showing the property outlines, I'm just curious whether or not there's been an exploration. Yeah, that one. Especially in the back there, I'm not sure whether that's developed
the capacity to develop that into a further parking lot or, put a structure in the back. I don't know if we've looked at that, but I see a lot of forested area. And I don't know if there's any restrictive development issues there in terms of moving the building backwards instead of forwards towards the street or increasing the parking there.
So Aaron, the big challenge there is the site drops dramatically. It drops 17 feet from the edge of the parking down to around here. And so this would require a lot of either grading and or retaining walls to add whether it be building or whether it be parking area. So that's the big thing that's holding development back is the slope.
Well, do you have a rough estimate of what the cost projection would be on either scenario so that we can weigh that appropriately?
Just to expand on what Mark indicated, Aaron, the stormwater facilities for the parking area also exist back there. There's a large detention area, 4-bay. There's a bit of infrastructure back there that would have to be accommodated in the event a building was to be put on top of it.
Okay. Well, I mean, the question still remains. I just wonder if we can get more information about the possibilities of using that parcel or that section of parcel one way or the other, from a cost perspective. Anyway, that's all.
Yeah, no, I think it's a valid question. It's one way of dealing with not having to move people out, construct a new building behind the existing building, then everybody can move. And then you address the existing building either by demolishing it to create your parking, or it serves a different function if we can solve the parking.
And sometimes you can put the basement storage and you don't have to bring in the fill. You just have it a basement because you don't need much for storage.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
So
I will.
It's a valid scenario.
So I'll leave the committee with those comments. Do I have somebody from the committee that's going to pick up the typewriter here?
I can pick it up.
We'll be able to do it from the recording. We'll be able to finish the minutes.
Okay. All right. Thank you, folks.
Thanks, Aaron.
Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you, Aaron.
Okay, so continuing on to that second level of 11 Pierce, you have your series of support or staff support spaces, the town administrator and CATV at the end of this wing. And then along this corridor, you have your big three with 2 conference spaces, and then the rest of your long-term storage accommodated along those meeting spaces. And so the big idea behind this is that with its location, we're able to stay in the center of town. And with this being new construction, with this being the only option that's new construction, we have also the ability to create that civic presence along this intersection on Pierce Street.
And I think to further Aaron's question, the financial analysis for this version would be applicable to new construction on 63 Main. And they both have demolition components.
So you said that, can you just say that again, Ned? Sorry, I just want to make sure I'm getting this all correct. They're roughly similar, 63 Main and.
If you were to do what Aaron was suggesting and construct a new building behind the existing building, the cost would be roughly equivalent.
Oh, okay.
Because it's not, it's the same amount of new construction, just on different sites.
And as far as, I guess this is a question for Anna, as far as this design for Pierce Street, so you said you demolish the current fire station and the little white shed they have behind it, and then you made it this shape. So I'm assuming like everything that's not part of that would be the new parking lot. Yeah.
Yeah, we have parking along the west side of, so the
South.
south side of the parcel, yeah. And then the rest of the space, we would need it for turnaround space, so this gives us about 20 spaces along this edge.
So that's not very much parking though, right? I mean,
That's correct, yeah.
so that would be pretty tight. Okay.
But Kristen, we have all the other parking that
Across the
we have
street.
in the Main Street job as well, right across the street.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are 83 spots, additional municipal spots within an 8th-mile walk or so.
The expectation would be that likely staff would park at the 3 War Memorial. Immediate in and outs are at the 20 spaces, and then kind of meeting groups would be over at the across the street at the 22 spaces.
Right, but that's if people did that. And not to say that the staff wouldn't, I'm not suggesting that, but I work in a place right now where parking is an issue and they ask people who are going to be there for the day or for several hours to park in the far away lot. I do find that it's not super realistic because like somebody sees somebody else doing it and they say, well, if they're not doing it, I'm not doing, it does get to be like, as far as like people coming for group events or like volunteers like me who I come in sometimes and I'm there for a long meeting or whatever, and it's night and it's cold. I don't know. I think the really far away parking is kind of a lot to ask, honestly, especially if the weather's bad and staff is being expected to like sit in a building all day with wet clothes or something. I would expect them to park at least at the one across the street. It just seems really complicated. Okay, thank you though. I do like the building.
So, and just to be clear, we view this site to have 2 options. One is demo, the other is adaptive reuse. And this is the adaptive reuse. And this is taking and using the existing building for rec. And it's a very straightforward renovation of the existing. So the mechanical bay or the equipment bays in the existing fire station have enough clear height to accommodate a basketball court. And the basketball court that we're showing in here is slightly smaller than a middle school court, but is bigger than the existing basketball court in the existing town hall. This also reflects our program for recreation, which is to say there's an office suite with a service desk and the director level office. There are 2 program rooms, a pair of toilet rooms, and then you have the gym. And by breaking this out in this manner, you are able to eliminate adding an elevator to this building because there's no need for the public to go up. All the needs are met at the ground floor. So this is sort of the other option for this, and we think it's a pretty good fit for a rec department.
I know you were waiting for this question. What about the voting? Could we use that for the voting as well?
That does have 5,400 square feet of open area in that gym. Yes, but it doesn't solve the parking problem, which this is downtown. And you're again counting on the parking lots that we've discussed prior.
Correct. Okay.
So,
Are there,
and
are there gym options besides this?
in terms of other publicly owned buildings, none that were in our scope of study. There may be some available. We're just not aware of them.
Thank you.
Okay. This is the reclaiming history option, and this is renovating the White Cliffs Mansion and providing additional space to it. And so with regards to this site, it is somewhat outside the half-mile walking distance. It has a history to it and a civic. I think there's a civic pride around this building. In reading about it in both reports and in news reports. It is a historic, it is a good example of the architecture of that period. There is a lot of space on this site, and it has, while it has, while it's recessed from the road, it has a potential civic presence from the approach to the building. There are some costs that come with using this building, and that is the historic preservation cost and the hazmat and other remediations that are $1.5 million and $6 million. So, however, it does lay out very well, and there is ample open space in this site, and there's also ample space for public parking. We do, because of the costs that are associated, that come with renovating that building, we believe that this will be the most expensive option. So Anna, you wanna, so as you can see, we would eliminate the parts of the building that were the function hall and restaurant, and we would return it back to simply having the historic mansion and then the addition. And so in this, we would either enter through the porch to the left or the community space to the right. And we see using this first floor as 100% community space, and tie into the building to the rear, which this hinge allows you to connect the business end to the cultural end of the building. And at this level, we have the meeting rooms with a pair of toilet rooms. The town clerk all create this front entrance piece. At the point of the town clerk, this can be locked down, and only those spaces open to the public. And then as you move to the east, there is the assessor, the IT and GIS, and then family and youth services and the food pantry. This also has a lot of opportunity to open to green space. This is a good solar orientation as well, where we are having the sun tracks from right to left on your screen, and it's a very good orientation for our climate. And then as you come up, we are reusing a good bit of this space for the town administrator, the staff support spaces, the veterans agent, and then we're putting in a bank of single user toilet rooms along here. There is the big three plus finance and the cable TV space, and we would look at having the select board room be a double height space in this option as well. So in this option, and actually in the 11 Pierce option, we're showing a very wide corridor, both for queuing for people and to allow space for the service desk to exist without having interference from or without causing crowding when there's queuing. This lets the existing White Cliffs stand on its own and be its own thing, and we would make a very discreet addition behind.
So this is Dario. Can you go back to that real quick?
Yeah.
I think this is really well done. Because one of the biggest problems we have with White Cliffs, is using it, and without a significant addition, which this is, 2-3 times the square footage of White Cliffs, but the addition solves all the handicap problems, because there's no way you can go into the White Cliffs building, put an elevator in it, put stairs that meet code in it, put ramps that, where, and correct me if I'm wrong, this addition that provides all the handicap access, and then that little link, whether it's all glass so that you don't even pretend like it's part of the other building, it could be just a transparent link that says old and new.
Yep.
Then you've got these floors tying into the floors in the old White Cliffs, so all your accessibility comes from the new building, but you get to keep White Cliffs and actually use it in some of these cases. And it's not, and I'm just speaking, this one's interesting. Yes, it costs more, it should cost more, because that whole historic piece doesn't exist on the rest of them, but at a much higher level with the town, we haven't been able to come up with a smart way to use it. And it should cost more, but at least we would both use it and preserve it, not spend $500,000 a year, keeping the birds and the squirrels out, so, and watching it deteriorate. So it's kind of an interesting scenario above and beyond the town hall. And I think that's something that we've sat, once we purchased White Cliffs, then it became our problem. This is one of the best ways of solving our problem, is to build something that's functional, but preserves and utilizes as much as we can of the old building. So good job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask a quick question too?
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe this is more of a comment, but if like this may not be an appropriate question for this meeting, and if so, just ignore me. But is there any way if we can figure out, if since this is so much more expensive, I've known this is so much more expensive for a long time, pretty much my whole time on the board of select board. So, but what was never tossed out before the last meeting was the whole puzzle thing, where part of the choice would be also, what do we do with the other buildings that we're not choosing to be the town hall? And if we were able to keep staff put where they are till the new building's built, and then sell that building, but also sell 4 West Main Street, because I've heard town administrators don't like to be landlords, then would that help defray the cost of this new building? And if so, then what would the price situation look like, I guess? And like I said, maybe no one knows yet. Maybe it's too early.
We don't, but it is part of our charge. So
Yeah.
we do understand that. I don't know whether the town has looked into the possibility of historic tax credits.
Yeah.
There are other mechanisms
Yeah.
for funding a project. The big catch, if you're familiar with historic tax credits, is that we would then fall under the jurisdiction of Mass Historic and potentially the National Park Service.
Okay, so there's lots of moving puzzle pieces that you're considering. Okay.
Right.
Super.
And Kristen, wouldn't that be true with any scenario that was selected?
Except this building wouldn't be able, we wouldn't be able to sell this one. Otherwise, yes, Linda, but no one wants to buy White Cliffs. We've already tried that. We've already tried to partner with people like it. We just, this has been a building that has been a real sticky situation and a tricky problem for the town and for the select board and for the town administrators.
Yeah.
So that's why if we're kind of killing two birds with one stone, town hall and White Cliffs, it might be a little better if financially it's not too crazy.
Yeah, and
And
I want to echo Dario's comments. This is a very elegant solution for the town and very unique to the town. If we can work with you to solve the financial puzzle for it, it checks a lot of the boxes. But it is at the moment automatically, millions of dollars more than the other option.
And Linda, I think one other thing that happens, and I'm not trying to play politics or anything, it's just fundamentally doing the right thing. One is the adaptive reuse of, a gorgeous building that we haven't been able to use. Like Kristen, we're not going to sell this one if we build in the existing town hall footprint. But not only is it adaptive reuse, it's also very green because of the north-south orientation. So we may get other credits for that. And I think if it's done properly, because we had discussed this, some folks already with, I call it a glass link because in my heart, I want White Cliffs to look like it looks and the new building to look new. It doesn't even have to play homage to it, but you're not pretending to be 1860s. You're pretending to be brand new. And here's a link that's connecting the new with the old. But it takes that burden of maintenance off us too, because all of a sudden we're not spending, $5,000 a year on this thing. We're spending a ton of money, and it's the more we don't use it, the more expensive it gets to use, and we can't demolish it because it's historic. So, and it's not the town hall mission, but boy, does it solve a lot of problems and goes above and beyond with respect to historic and green as well. So I don't know, there's something about this one that I'm usually cheap Charlie, but in a weird way, it may be the cheap Charlie solution if you look at it in the whole 10-year plan.
I also want to piggyback on what Dario said with regards to let the new be new. That's actually guidance from the National Park Service, is that you should not try to replicate what is there when you are connecting to a historic building, and that they are big fans of the glassy hyphen, for lack of a better phrase, to separate the new from the old. Yeah.
Judy, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Thank you, Bill. And I too want to piggyback on what Dario's saying. And I think this project lends itself to further expansion over the years, bringing more outside community locales, things like that. But I changing gears, I think a big piece, missing piece of this puzzle is we need to find out the site, what do you call it, Ned? Site disposition. Because that's, if we can sell the other buildings, that's money to roll into another project. So I thought we were going to have those numbers tonight. So I think we wouldn't be able to vote either way without having that important information.
Yeah, those are coming, but we didn't get them for this evening.
Thank you.
Yeah, I do. I do think that if this is something that the committee is interested in, it would have to be approached with a really thoughtful financial model. We're working with another town, and although it's not historic tax credits, they're doing the same thing. They actually chose the path that is the more expensive path, but at that point they began developing a cost model that would mitigate the tax burden to the town.
I just want to bring up one point, and then I have one question. So the other thing to keep in mind is that one of the benefits of newer construction is you get to take advantage of some of the efficiencies that are now available that, maybe we wouldn't get if we tried to rebuild for West Main or something like that, right? So we sort of have to, I know Tim brought this up a couple meetings ago, that we really have to think about long-term cost as well as just what the short-term cost is, right? How much will it cost for us to maintain and heat the building and the electricity, right? Putting solar on there can definitely help offset some of those costs. My question though is, so I know, one of the big aspects of this building is the facade in the front, right? Where you show the town administrator right now, that can be seen from the street. How much of that new building will be seen from the street as well?
So we took the dimension of the existing and used that to as sort of sizing the small part of the L. So you have this dimension equal to that dimension. In general, the trees, the slope, it is downhill. We wouldn't see removing it. We would see only removing the trees needed for new construction. So a good chunk of this would not be visible from the road.
So
And
you'd get a kind of, there'd be a pairing of
right.
of kind of equal masses, although the new construction would be lower than the historic. So it maintains its sort of dominance.
Okay, but the trees would be able to hide during the spring, summer, and fall months anyways. The trees could hide some of the newer part.
Well,
Yeah.
and Bill, we're doing a similar thing in Weston right now, and we have a natural, what I would call grand entrance here with the sculptures and everything. And if you side that with trees and lights, like a beautiful LA going all the way up, the new building's going to be kind of a, by the way, look what's there, but your eyeball's going to go where everybody wants it to go because it's already there. We don't even have to compose it. It's been there for 150 years, and I think with the efficiency stuff, Ned and Mark get fired if it's not efficient because, and I'm being sarcastic, it's brand new. Like we have no excuses. We can put in the extra 2 inches of insulation. That southern corridor, I'm going to guess, is not a fluke. But you talk about passive solar opportunities where you shade it in the summer, you have the sun come in the winter, you're going beyond solar panels, you're going passive design. And again, it's just the right thing to do. I'm not one of these people that wants everything super green, but in this case, I don't care what side of any fence you're on, that part's just the right thing to do. And to save us the cost of maintaining and actually be able to use this building. They're tearing down all the junk, which is great too. All the additions are going away. And that's really the right thing to do. But then you've got this museum that you go to the town hall and you want to wait for a meeting. It's so cool to be able to look at that building because it's something Northborough has that no other town has. And that's also a cool thing.
Yep. No, I completely agree, Dario. I want to make sure that we're asking all the right questions now.
Linda has her hand up.
Yep, Linda, go ahead.
Yeah, so for this space, would there be any potential for making it even larger to include the recreation space? And would there be an economic efficiency in doing something like that rather than creating that space in another location?
On a purely economic level, it would probably be least expensive to renovate 11 Pierce. It could be, there is sufficient, the parking that was done for the function hall and restaurant has created a large flat area, and we could look at adding that as part of this. And it becomes more of a municipal compound at that point. But it's something that could be done.
Does this have the capability to have a second entrance? Because having a recreation, I just picture like, a whole basketball team getting out at once, it's gonna get log jammed in there.
Yeah, I mean, it's something
to
we'd have to,
capacity, yeah.
yeah, it's something we'd have to look at further. Right now, we're kind of thinking that this becomes staff and this becomes the public entrance.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Just one other thing, and I might be missing it. How many parking spaces are here?
you can exceed easily the 65 that we think are going to be required. Just in the existing footprints alone, here and here, I think we're looking at around 60 in that general area. So there's a ton of parking.
And in the back, you gotta have another 50, right?
Yeah,
Where the
yeah,
existing parking is.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Okay, thank you.
There is a voting option here, right? I think you showed us it's like the third slide.
This again for future, if that was a requirement on the first floor, you could again have the select board room have a movable partition and open up, and also have the other large meeting room open up as well, and that would most likely give you that contiguous square footage that the clerk currently uses.
Could we see that slide again, just quick? Thanks.
Down one, there we go. So yeah, it'd be this general area, and I mean, you could include that as well.
Nice.
We should probably move forward.
Yeah. So the outcome that we the things that we wanted to talk about is the feedback on the checklist, the and the preferred option. We understand that can't be done tonight, but it's something we'd like to hear. The fifth option provided a lot of discussion, and then in terms of the public presentation, what we have shown tonight been too much, appropriate? How would the committee like to see this move forward for next Tuesday?
I'll open that question up to members first before I answer. Is there anyone?
Anna, can you go to the checklist so we can cover that first?
Bill, Mr. Chairman, just to clarify a little bit regarding the preferred option, I believe the goal and objective tonight was to present, all of the options that have been analyzed, the pluses and minuses of each. Obviously, the final decision is going to the pro forma is going to bear heavily on that. For example, what are the values of other properties? If they're disposed of, does it offset the 7.5 million historic hangar on 167 Main Street? Those types of things need to be part of the consideration. But I think, Mr. Chairman, our goal here is to just kind of get a straw poll on what appears to be viable and considered as an option, so that the pro formas can be fine-tuned a little bit more on what the disposition values are for the remaining properties, to see if that's a good approach going forward.
Okay, thank you, Scott. Kristen, I saw you had your hand up.
Yeah, I was gonna ask a kind of a basic question, like when we meet with the public, they'll just be that there will be visuals of all these options, right? Like these floor plans, or so people can.
Yeah, I mean, we had intended to give a digital presentation if that is possible. If that's not possible, we do need to know that now.
There will be a PowerPoint set up there with a large screen, a stage, a podium, plenty of
Got it.
microphones for everybody to talk.
Okay.
We will reformat the slides for that presentation method. These are set up because you can read them on your screen. They would not work in a PowerPoint format.
And can you make the whole thing go faster?
Well, I was gonna get to that, Kristen. Maybe what we do, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, the first one had like 3 options. Pick whichever one we think is the best. Let them know there's a cheaper one and a better one, but rather than spend, because each option you have to spend whatever, 15 minutes on. The first one, there's 45 minutes, but it's conceptually kind of the same. So maybe we pick the best one and say, okay, here's 4 main, and this is what we can do. We're a little short on the programming, you know, and just kind of hit it, whether we do the addition or not, but hit that one and whichever one we think is the best. And then the one with the fire station, I don't even know that's worth showing the basketball court at that point, because that's apples and oranges and nothing to do with the town hall. Right now, we're doing the town hall. And then the last one, same thing. Here's this option. It's got some other craziness about it that, you know, we can't ignore, but when you do the pro forma, that should show it. But on that checklist, there's almost things like green, this, that, yeah, you know, there's a lot of other things that came out on the last one that I didn't see on the first couple, because you really can't do it in the town hall, the existing one, or 4 West, because we're just using a building that's there, so we can only do the best that we can. But I think if we just do one scheme to make it simple on everybody, me included, that may help shorten it. And if people want to dig into, well, let's see the addition part of 4 West, then you say, oh yeah, we can do this. It gets bigger, it costs more, it blocks up Blake Street, you know, whatever, and let them know that that's, unless everything has to be exposed. I don't know if there's rules on all that either.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sort of thinking along the lines of, you know, let me ask it this way. Is there any that anyone thinks are automatically out? So for example, that first one, the 4 West Main interiors, right? That doesn't accommodate what we're looking for. So in my mind, that's already out. We don't even need to present that because it doesn't meet the needs of the current town hall, let alone a future one.
I would agree with that, Bill, and I'm leaning towards 11 Pierce doesn't have the parking or to accommodate what the building could be.
Right, like if you're gonna build a new building, just don't build it right there because there's no parking.
Right, because everyone's going to have to cross the street or walk to work or you know.
Yeah, we have other build a new building options, really.
Yeah,
So
I could agree.
In terms of the public presentation, it certainly makes sense, and it's only the responsible thing to do is to present the buildings that were under consideration, and then say the committee has, by process of elimination, ruled out this 1 or 2 or 3 buildings. So, and then put the bulk of the presentation on the buildings that we are considering.
Yeah, we can be very transparent about that, and that you all have just described in a matter of a few seconds why some would be eliminated.
And also, 11 Pierce would make a really great basketball court. Like people would be probably interested in hearing about that. Maybe just not at this particular meeting, but we can have that information ready. If people want to see it at the meeting, great, you'd show them, but otherwise it's not really about town hall.
But I think you derail a meeting when you throw something complete, like no matter what option we pick other than 11 Pierce, you go with the basketball court there. But it's like, okay, by the way, we can sell apples down at, you know, Higbee's, and you're like, well, wait a minute, what's that have to do with the town hall? You know, we're just showing like something that that building could do, but it really doesn't have anything to do with the town hall. Either we put it where the fire station is or we don't, but we also have a cool use for it if we don't.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
go ahead.
this
ahead, Judy.
committee is charged with giving options for a new town hall. So if we go into this presentation saying, we've eliminated this building, but it could be a this, now you're taking the conversation in a whole different direction and you're opening it up to more public input. And that's not what next week is about. It's
Right.
about, these are the buildings that could work. So Icon's going to tell you why.
And Judy, I think you're right. I think it's also important to say we eliminated the interior for West Main, utilizing as it is because it doesn't meet the program. But now people can't say, I can't believe you didn't put it for West Main. And you say, well, we looked at it and it doesn't meet the program. So we seriously considered it. And the only way it really would work is we put an addition on it. So you had to have looked at that. Looking at that and seeing it was too small, to me, is priceless because you don't get second guessed later on. If we look at 11 Pierce and we say, hey, we've got enough parking nearby, but it's so inconvenient. We have 3 other options that work so much better. We took that one out because then they saw that we considered it, and I think it's cool to say these were eliminated. And here's where we ended up: 4 West Main with addition, 63 Main, White Cliffs. But we looked at many other options, but we just wanted to show you some of them so that they were seriously considered, and I think that gives people comfort in knowing, oh, this wasn't, Dario's idea to sit there at 63 Main because Ned took them out to the Super Bowl. Right. and I've never even met Ned in person, but it just, it lets everybody know we're really looking at everything, which we had to do. And we did do, as far as we didn't look at Greenfield. Right. That's the only thing that we didn't throw out there. If we put it on the Harvey site or something, what would it cost if it was just on a normal site? But this is, it was well done. And I think we all get the positives and minuses of all these scenarios.
Yeah, I think, when Mark and Ned, when you do your presentation, right, put those 2 first. Put 4 West Main Street interior first and 11 Pierce second, and say, the committee didn't think that these were viable because of X, Y, and Z, right? We've told people that we looked at them. We don't need to go into details about them, right? Unless people start asking questions. But, let them know that we have done some due diligence here.
Well,
Yeah,
I
we
should
seriously
say
consider them.
in a public forum, we'll entertain questions at the end of the presentation. That will make it go much more quickly all by itself.
Right.
I feel that it's important to present all of the options without any recommendations from the committee because we are missing 2 committee members tonight. And I don't think we can come to any determination about what the committee is recommending.
I agree, Linda. I think we're just using 4 Main and West Main and 11 Pierce kind of as examples. But I think we as a committee need to meet before the public forum and have a better grasp on this and hopefully have the numbers of the site disposition on each of these buildings.
Yeah, we're not actually voting on anything, and it sounds like what Ned is saying, all of them will be presented, but 2 of them will be at the beginning and only the bare bones will be presented. And one of them is the same building. It's 4 West Main the way it is now, or 4 West Main with an addition. So you can just kind of gloss through it quickly. Without the addition, it's not really working. We're not taking away any options there. And then on 11 Pierce Street, if people think we want to present that and just maybe try and do it, I don't want to lose people. This was a long meeting, I just don't want to lose people. I understand you do this all the time, so you probably know how to make it go quickly, but I think that's smart to, if you add them, keep them at the beginning and maybe just go through them quickly enough so people can see like these two aren't really working, and then they get better and better and better.
So tell you what, we'll do an outline of our presentation and share it with Scott to share with all of you. Not the whole presentation, because that'll take longer, but I think we can tell you this is the order, you know, and the content
Nice.
based on what we've heard tonight, which is super helpful. And I understand you guys volunteered to, you know, go through all this detail. The public doesn't need to be drawn through it in quite so much fine-grained information.
I agree with
Other board members are going to be watching this meeting too, so they'll get all that information, the two who aren't here.
And I think it's good to hold questions to the end so you can get through everything. You know, and say, listen, we've got to get through everything at the end. Knock yourself out with questions.
Yeah,
I think
go ahead,
that's
Scott.
important.
I think Scott had something.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I want to echo a little bit of what most of the committee and ICON has stated. The goal and objective of the committee here before next week's meeting is to vet out the hierarchy, so to speak, of the alternatives, because this committee has seen, you know, the nuts and bolts and the sausage factory as opposed to the finished product. Where next week will be, you know, here is the hierarchy of the priorities and what we've seen as pluses and minuses. Next week will be a joint meeting of the Board of Selectmen, of the Select Board, and this committee. This committee has gone through a thorough consideration of things like Kristen just mentioned. You know, 4 West Main Street as it stands, too small. The floors don't really work for customer service. You should not have to go to the 4th floor to do this. If there are questions in detail, we've seen the slides. They're there and they're available in the event we need them. But you know, this committee has seen what the challenges are on different sites and has vetted them out. And there are certainly apparent priorities. So I'm hoping that, you know, the select board and this committee and the public can see that and understand the the long process you've gone through to understand all the work that's gone behind the scenes to get us to where we are. So I think you know, ICON has a good grasp on where the preliminarily preferred alternatives are and what the shortcomings are on each of the alternatives. So I'm optimistic that hopefully people watch this and get to see the 2-hour meeting to get the nuts and bolts of it before they show up next week.
I hope those high maintenance select board people are paying attention.
And one other thing too, because sometimes right hand, left hand doesn't work. I was on the master plan implementation committee for a long time, and there's certain things here that worked with that, because I'm sure people will say, how does this tie in with what we were trying to do? And Scott, you've been on that too. And one of the things that the only one that struck me as not really working with that was blocking Blake Street, because that was like one of our most charming little areas in the whole town, where we said, hey, we get a couple little more commercial shops, embrace the rail, you know, when a train goes by, make lights blink and say, hey, that's a really cool thing. And that's probably the only one that didn't go along with the master plan. Using the fire station did, using the old town hall. White Cliffs did. That addition was a little awkward, but we have to show it because that's the only way that building can be used. But it's also, we're sensitive to what's been going on with the other committees too. A couple of us were on different committees or both.
Okay. So I think ICON had some questions for us. So why don't we try to move this forward here?
I think we could probably stop sharing at this point. Thank you. I think we've gleaned pretty much everything that we need at this point. I think the best thing that we can do is go away, put our agenda together for next week, and get on putting together that presentation to the town. I mean, I didn't hear, we have a surplus of information at this point. That's far easier to deal with than a deficiency of information. We'll hound our real estate guy, Judy, and try and get that resolved as well. So it's, at this point, it's really, we need to spend the time to orchestrate delivering the information in a succinct and meaningful way.
Okay.
Yeah.
So does everyone think we are ready for next week? I guess
I'm
that's
not-
the question.
What is the process for the hierarchy that Scott described? I'm not sure how that happens. Because the meeting, the public meeting is next Tuesday, right? And so, I think Scott, you alluded to having sort of a hierarchy to present to the public. When does that happen?
It from what I've taken from tonight, it sounds like, 4 West Main Street, no addition, is a geometric challenge when it comes to 5 stories and providing customer service. The addition may be problematic when when you consider closing Blake Street with an addition. So 11 Pierce falls in a similar realm as 4 West Main when it comes to parking struggles. And 63 Main Street is viable, except for continuity of government during construction. And then 167 is, I think is one of the best alternatives if you put the checkbook in the closet and don't even think about dollars. That seems like it has been vetted out by this committee as the hierarchy of alternatives, and at that point it's the community's prerogative on where they want to go, and I think that's the best way to present next week going forward in a quick to wider visioned presentation. If it's going to be very expensive, I think you want to know a lot of detail. If it's not viable, it may be less details needed in order to vet it. That's just my perspective.
Yeah, I think Linda, to your point, we will be equitable in how we present these. There are pluses and minuses to every scheme, but we are listening to the committee, and we don't want to dwell on something that the committee doesn't believe is worthy of spending a lot of time on.
And I think that's my point. I'm not sure everyone on the committee agrees. I kind of like the 4 West Main Street idea with the addition. And I really do think that we need more financial information. I think it's a beautiful, the White Cliffs is a beautiful solution to a problem that we have, but it's also very expensive. And so it really, to what degree we want to take on the financial commitment of doing that unless we are sure that we can counter it with real estate sales or other kind of grant money or something like that. And, I think it's early to say that's our solution. So I guess I'm not sure that I would rank things in the same way as what I'm hearing from you, Scott, I think.
Okay. Judy.
Thank you, Bill. I have 2 questions. Ned, is there a way that if this committee, well, actually, let me reverse that. I suppose as we weigh in on what our recommendation would be, is it possible to do White Cliffs in phases, like build the addition, get some people in, and then defer some costs to renovation of the main building.
You could, phasing does tend to make things more expensive in the long run.
Okay,
You know, if it was basically continuous, you know, you do the new construction, and as soon as that's done, you do the renovation part of it, that's different. But if there's time between them, the costs will go up.
okay, okay. And then to Linda's, oh, pardon me, did I cut you off?
No, I was just gonna, I mean, we're perfectly fine, to Linda's point, with presenting these in a balanced way. We don't need to put our finger on the scale on any of them. I do think the issues that you're pointing out become self-evident to those. You know, if they're all presented with equal weight, we would be prepared to talk more deeply about the ones that folks think are more viable.
Okay. Then I guess my question is directed now towards either Scott or Bill. What will the perception of the public be going into this meeting Tuesday night? Are they going to be under the assumption that we as a committee are making a recommendation? And if so, then I think we need to get the other members, to Linda's point, we need to have further discussion.
I think so. Oh, God, Scott.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's okay. Go ahead.
The goal and objective is to next week to get public input, get a consensus from this committee and a consensus from the select board on where the project should go forward. It doesn't have to be a motion and second and vote for this site, but at least to say these are the one or two alternatives that we're interested in, and let's iron out the pro formas to see where the most viable one is and go forward. And to echo Ned's and to address your concerns, Linda, yeah, a fair and even presentation is absolutely the right way to go with all 5 alternatives. But with the understanding that there are some that have financial viability, some that have financial challenges and site challenges and site viability. And, we have adequate backup information for all of them. That can be, the secondary slideshow component. And if the meeting goes toward X and Z, here is more information on X and Z, and, ABC, go to the wayside. That's generally how you get a consensus from the community. And, Judy and Linda, absolutely, the pro forma is critical in making a decision. If 11 Pierce, 4 West Main, and 63 Main Street balance out the $7.5 million to restore White Cliffs, that's a valuable piece of information. If it isn't, then also that's equally valuable for consideration. So.
Yep. No, I was going to echo exactly what Scott said. I think, the intent here is, a next week's meeting to come up with a decision of at least 1 or 2 sites that we really want to hone in on and make sure that, everyone's on the same page. And everyone may not be on the same page, right? But at least to have that open discussion in the public. So, Ned, maybe Kristen, just give me 1 second. Maybe what we need to do is we need to keep it the same format we did, the same order we did this time, just cost, right? And just keep it at that. So that way there's no, no one's thinking that we're trying to, make recommendations ahead of time.
Yeah, and I think what's formulating in my mind is that we'll present it in kind of 2 tiers. So there'll be a top comparison of all 5 at a higher level than we presented this evening. We will be prepared, because we have the information already, to dive into each one of them independently. We may not ever get there, but you know, it's a little bit of a, we get to this decision point and we go this way, or, you know, we go that way, depending on the feedback that we get.
Yeah, and I don't know if even having like, oh, go ahead, Kristen, you had your hand up earlier, and then I'll go.
No, if you're continuing on that conversation, ask that because mine is a little bit more logistical.
I was just going to say, yeah, mine is sort of logistical as well. So, you know, what I was thinking in the top of my head is, do we want to have something like, you know, 5 boards when people first come in, right? Here are the 5 things, right? And we have a sheet of paper with a, you know, here are the things to consider at each of these sites, right? Before you even do your presentation. So at least people can come in and get an idea of what the presentation is, and it's not, you know, exactly coming in cold. I don't know, it's just a thought. But go ahead, Kristen.
So on Tuesday next week, I'm just double checking. We have a dual meeting with the select board, right? So I get to wear 2 hats. And then is it the very next day, the Wednesday, we do the public? Do I have that right or am I wrong?
No, that is the
No.
public.
Tuesday.
We're all meeting with the public.
Oh, so the meeting with the select board and the public is all the same time.
It's all the same meeting, yes.
Where?
In the
that?
gym.
In the gymnasium.
Town hall gym. And then that can also be hybrid, like it'll be set up. People can watch it online too, or no?
Cable access will be there. They'll be videoing it. They'll be broadcasting it. The select board will be a posted meeting, as will this committee. Yes.
Okay. I will take that other meeting off my calendar. Thank you.
And the building is available for tours if anybody wants to see it.
Oh, right. I remember talking to Tim about that. Yeah, he said
Yep.
people should be able to walk around that. That's a good idea.
Absolutely.
And maybe it's important also to have, I mean, I know you and Sean will be there, and Diane, I guess, but like people who have experienced the downsides of the building the way it is now, because one of the things I think Tim was thinking is that people don't understand, like, why do we need a new town hall if they only come to town hall once every 2 years? It doesn't seem that bad, right? I know the bathrooms have been an issue. I know, maybe make a list of like all the reasons that it really isn't a sustainable building for you guys to keep working in for the long term, and have that ready.
Go ahead, Diane.
Thank you, through the chair. Tim is working on a video
Okay,
that I think you'll
be helpful.
like. Yeah, that will answer your inquiries. Absolutely.
Right,
I
yeah,
think
I think people don't understand sometimes.
I think our facility manager has, I don't know, 5 or 6 pages on his to-do list.
Which is why he's down in Florida.
Yeah.
Relaxing while he can. Okay, so let's move forward then here. So the next item on the agenda is public comments. So I know there are a few people out in the audience. I'll use this opportunity to, if anyone wants to make a comment now, or if they want to wait until next week. In order to make a public comment, by phone dial *9 to raise your hand and wait to be recognized by the chair. Please note that part of your phone number will be visible to those viewing the meeting. By Zoom, click on raise hand at the bottom of your screen and wait to be recognized. Once your hand is raised, we'll give you 3 minutes to make whatever comment you would like. So is there anyone in the public who'd like to make a comment on this now, or otherwise we can just hold until next week, next Tuesday? I don't see any hands going up. Okay. So I know we have the meeting on the 27th, next Tuesday, 6:30 at the gymnasium. Scott, we wanted to talk about potential March meeting dates.
Yes, I know we touched on it at the last meeting, and forgive me, my notes are not with me. I think a quick meeting after the 27th, and I'm not talking about the 28th, but the following week would be appropriate for this committee. I'm hoping that maybe the 6th would work.
Yeah, the 5th won't work because that's election day.
No, the 6th.
But the 6th would, yeah, I would be open to that. I know Aaron and Ashley aren't here, so maybe maybe we would have to wait for them before we make any decisions on a next meeting.
We can send out an email polling the committee for maybe the following week, the 13th, or something after the 6th, the 7th, or something like that. So Aaron and Ashley can be responsive.
Well, so let me ask this. Of the members who are here, does anyone have a problem or a conflict with March 6th?
No.
No.
And we're available.
Okay.
We are available.
Okay. So Scott, maybe if you can email Ashley and Aaron and ask them if they would be available for the 6th, and we'll tentatively pencil it in on the 6th at 6:30.
Be happy to do that.
And then if they come back that they can't make it, we do want everyone at that meeting. I think, we're getting to more and more, each of these meetings, I think, is more and more important that we have everyone here for the entire meeting. So
we'll make sure it happens, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. You
Yeah,
always
I
do.
just wanted to note we are not available on the 13th, so hopefully the 6th will work.
Okay. If there are no other issues, I will take a motion to adjourn.
I'll second. Yep.
Okay, moved by Kristen, seconded by Judy. Roll call vote. Linda?
Aye.
Kristen?
Aye.
Judy?
Aye.
Dario?
Yes.
And I'm an aye as well. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night, and we will see you next Tuesday.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Aye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.